Donald Trump spoke in Rapid City, South Dakota, and it was sort of an event with a few different speakers, including Christy Gnome, who's the governor of South Dakota and is clearly auditioning to be Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate. And so we'll get into Trump's speech at this event. I was also on the ground, so later in today's show, we'll look at my interviews with Trump supporters as they were outside showing their support for Trump in Rapid City. But before getting to Trump and all the ridiculous things he had to say, first, he was introduced by Christy Gnome, and here was what she had to say. Again, lots of speculation that she might be who Trump picks to be his running mate. Take a look.
He fights for us every single day. Now, some people can't figure out his popularity. Why are people so loyal to him? I'm convinced it's because we have never seen anything or anyone like him ever before.
I agree we haven't seen anything or anyone like him before, but not in a positive way.
And we've certainly never seen anyone like him serve in public office before. He is unapologetically himself. He's real, he's genuine, he is who he is, and he never pretends to be something that he's not.
Except when he pretends to be a winner of the 2020 election.
And those who hate America know that he will fight every single day to stop them from destroying this country. He fights for us.
Okay, so we'll see if the speculation is correct. The event did seem to be a little test run for that. She introduces him. She does check some of the boxes it seems he's looking for in a vice presidential running mate. The reporting reveals that he's looking for a female running mate, and she there is showing her support for him, which is obviously the most important box to check for Donald Trump. Now getting into his speech. First, I'll show you this. Of course, lots of ranting about how big of a victim he is and how all of his legal troubles are not because of his own wrongdoing, but because of him being targeted, political persecution, this big victim. Despite there not being any evidence of that, there is evidence of the accusations against him, though.
Telling you what happened, but you know what happened just like all you have to do is watch the newscast, which, by the way, if you look at ABC, CBS, NBC, you look at CNN, you look at MSDNC, which is, I think, the worst of all. I think they're horrible. What they say, they're evil. They're evil. They're really evil. And they're really a wing of the Democrat Party. I mean, they should be paying. Somebody should report that for campaign contributions, because it's so bad. What they say is so nasty, so horrible. You know, you don't want your family to watch it. How about me? I hear I'm going to be indicted. I said, indicted? I never learned about that at the Wharton School. Indicted? You're going to be indicted. How about me? I have to go see my wife. Darling, may I talk to you for a moment? Yes. I'm going to be indicted for no reason whatsoever on Friday. And then that happens.
Okay. And then on he goes on that. And of course, he was indicted for very, very real reasons, including trying to overthrow our democratic process and install himself the president, which would be one of the worst things for democracy a sitting president of the United States could possibly do. Very real actions there, despite his claims to the contrary. And we can speculate as to if he actually had that conversation with his wife, Melania Trump, who doesn't seem to be engaging in conversations with him often. But then more on his legal troubles here.
And you know, I used to treat him with a modicum of respect because I have respect for the office of the presidency, and I would never talk the way I talk now. But when they indicted me for nothing, for free speech, I said the election was rigged and stolen, which it was, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Free speech.
I know it can feel repetitive. This is the front runner of the Republican Party for president of the United States. After everything he did, still, that is very much the case. And so responding to claims like this is very, very important, even though I've gone through it so many times. He's not being indicted for his freedom of speech. He's being indicted for the things he did, the conspiracy he engaged in, the coordinated effort to overthrow our democracy that he engaged in. And he was using speech to justify those things, and using his speech possibly to coordinate as a part of this criminal conspiracy, allegedly. But it's not him questioning the results. He has the right to lie about the election, as upsetting as it is. He has the right to legally challenge the election. Of course, we have a process for that through the courts. You can challenge the results or bring allegations of voter fraud, and he lost time and time again there. So then he allegedly stepped outside of the law and engaged in the fraudulent slate of electors scheme and pressuring Mike Pence to do something that would be a violation of his oath of office, and local election officials, trying to get them to do things that would be highly inappropriate, possibly unlawful. And so that is what he was indicted for. But it sounds a lot more like maybe it's accurate that he's the victim if you can get people to believe it's all just because I said the election was stolen. No, absolutely not. And then just a little bit more, then we'll get to a different topic.
Biggest fear that everybody has. Our momentum is unprecedented and hopefully unstoppable, and that's the reason that Joe Biden's ordered his leading opponent arrested on 91 fake and phony charges. 91. How many charges are they? But we're going to ask for dismissals of a lot of it. Most of it is just, you ask for dismissal. It's called dismiss the charges. But remember, it's a Democrat charging his opponent. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
And of course, there is no reason to believe that Joe Biden is directing these prosecutions, and he wants you to believe it's more reasonable that he's the one person telling the truth, that all of what's being brought against him is phony and fraudulent, when even narrowing it down to the grand juries were made up of regular citizens brought in to engage in their civic duty, participating as a part of the grand jury, hearing evidence that the prosecutors brought forward, and deciding is that compelling enough to proceed with an indictment. But he's saying all the jurors across all these grand juries, across all these jurisdictions, and all the prosecutors, they're all a part of this criminal conspiracy against Trump, instead of maybe Trump's just the one because it's in his interest lying about all of it and wanting his followers to believe that everyone's out to get him, and there's no reason for these prosecutions. Pretty stunning, but people buy into it, as you'll see with my interview with Trump supporters in a later segment. It's already out on the YouTube channel if you want to take a look at that. And then moving away from his legal troubles, here's something sort of interesting. He admits, while some within his party don't, that Roe v. Wade being overturned did hurt Republicans politically.
And I'm going to tell you something, because it's really a positive. It's a big positive, but they try and play it as a negative. Last year, those justices bravely and incredibly ruled on something that everybody has wanted for decades, for 51 years. They ruled to end Roe v. Wade. That was a big thing. And it's probably cost us politically, because the other side got energized. And, you know, they're the radicals, not the pro-lifers. But now pro-lifers.
And of course, that last statement, the majority of Americans, then he's saying, are the radicals. But at least he does acknowledge it is hurting Republicans politically. And that's something we talked about at the end of last week. Mike Pence said, my former running mate is saying that it hurts us politically, but I don't think so. I don't think overturning Roe v. Wade hurt us at all in the midterms. And it's a moment where you just think, okay, I guess you can hold that view. It'll just hurt you more because you won't adjust. Now, some outside of even Trump are realizing the same thing and trying to figure out, instead of just approaching the issue of abortion rights more reasonably, instead of doing that, we'll get to later in today's show, some Republicans in a closed-door meeting were trying to figure out with strategists, how do we rebrand? Instead of pro-life, maybe we'll say pro-baby, or rebrand the wording around our policies instead of just having better policies on the subject and not enacting all of these extreme bans across the country or being for that at the federal level as well. But instead, it'll be a rebrand. Okay, we'll see how that helps. And then he moves on to inaccurately assessing Biden's economic record.
I can tell you. During Biden's first 30 months in office, just 2.1 million new jobs have been created nationwide. Now, they have a different wrinkle on it, and the wrinkle is so off that even the fake news back there said that he can't get away with that. No, he makes up these stories, you know, like there's a picture of a fighter jet. I used to be a fighter jet pilot. Then there's a picture of a truck. I used to drive a truck, and then there's a picture. He does everything. This guy. The worst is, did you ever see his golf swing? He said he's a 6 handicap. 6 handicap's a good golfer. You know, when he's 6 handicaps, that's a good golfer. This guy can't hit a ball to Christy.
Okay. But on the substance, he says 2.1 million new jobs have been created under Biden's watch. That's not even close to true. Not even remotely close to accurate. 13.5 million jobs have been created since Biden became president. Is that to say that Biden created all of them? No. Is that to say even his policies implemented, impacted the economy in such a way where all of that is because of him? No, of course not. We would have seen some of that. But you can directly chart, at least based on studies and analysis that have been done, that the economic recovery was as strong as it was in part because of the approach the Democrats and Biden took to investments in the economy and legislation like the American Rescue Plan that is attributed to have created millions of jobs earlier, if ever, than they would have otherwise. And so 13.5 million jobs, not all because of Biden Democrats, but some of that, the speed and efficiency of those jobs coming back, definitely you can attribute to, in part, their governance. And so he's just so inaccurate, as is not surprising. And a little bit on similar topic here.
The fact is, we're probably heading into a Great Depression, something I've never said before publicly. I'm saying it in your state. I hate to say that this is the state I have to say it, but you know, I don't believe I've ever said that before. It's a hell of a statement to make, and I hate to make it. The only question is whether or not it'll be during the remaining months of the Biden administration. If it's going to happen, let it happen then. If it's going to happen, let it be during Joe, and we'll come in and we'll straighten this sucker out.
Pretty vile. You can tell he would love a depression, an economic depression under Joe Biden, despite the massive harm that would cause for Americans and economic pain that would inflict on to so many people. But there's just no economic indication that we're headed toward a depression. And since Biden became president of the United States, so many people have been saying, well, okay, sure, the recovery has really ramped up and we're outperforming other comparable economies in our recovery, but the Democrats are messing it up, and just watch, we're going to have a recession. And that prediction has been said time and time. It's about just the next few months, and we haven't seen that recession, despite the constant predicting and, in a weird way, hoping from some people, it seems, that that would happen. And time and time again, we get jobs numbers, we get inflation numbers, and we are not where we want to be, but headed in the right direction. And again, outperforming in our recovery other G7 countries, the comparable economies. We are doing better and recovering faster from the unprecedented moment that was caused by the pandemic and the economic downturn that it caused. We are outperforming those other countries, which is great to see. Again, not because it means we're where we want to be, but because clearly Biden's not messing it up and could be actually contributing to the recovery and the metrics that we're seeing. Despite that, Trump says we're about to enter into an economic depression, and please let it happen under Joe Biden. My goodness. So there it is, Trump's speech. Definitely tune in to the segment I'll be doing later on about my interviews with Trump supporters. Even more wild. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.